mynews.studio.
Electric cars glide past donkey carts in Addis Ababa. Has Ethiopia just changed the future of driving?
Today is October 11th, 2025. Ethiopia has just banned the import of combustion engine vehicles. And it's not just a symbolic move. It's the first African country to do this. What does that actually look like on the streets?
It's immediate. In Addis Ababa, for example, electric vehicles are now a common sight. This shift isn't only about cleaner air. The government wants to cut emissions, improve public health, and drive sustainable growth. But can one policy really change an entire transportation system?
The numbers say something is happening. Over 90% of Addis Ababa's population has electricity access, so EV adoption there is moving quickly. But what about rural Ethiopia, where less than half have reliable electricity? Isn't that a huge barrier?
It is. The government knows that gap is real. They're pushing to install charging stations no more than 120 kilometers apart, even in remote areas. That's ambitious, but the grid is still unreliable outside cities. So they're turning to solar-powered charging and even looking at retrofitting old cars with electric drivetrains. Will that be enough to bridge the rural-urban divide?
Infrastructure is only half the battle. Let's talk about money. Ethiopia's cut import duties on EVs to 15%. They're exempt from value-added tax and other fees, and prices have dropped by nearly half since 2022. But even with those cuts, EVs are still expensive for most people. How are people managing to buy them?
For most, it's still tough. Few can buy an EV outright, and access to credit is limited, especially outside the big cities. The government's now working with banks and employers to create financing plans. But there's another incentive: operating costs. Taxi drivers and high-mileage users are switching because charging costs much less than fuel. Will that kind of economic pressure drive broader adoption?
Market shift is happening fast. What about the mechanics, the used car dealers? How are they adapting to this sudden change?
That's a big story. All EV importers must set up after-sales service centers before licensing cars, so maintenance support is growing. The government's opened training centers to teach mechanics how to work on EVs, electric motors, batteries, the whole package. Retrofitting old combustion cars is taking off too, with incentives and training. But the used car market is squeezed, with imports banned and affordable EVs scarce. Secondhand prices are climbing. How will that affect people who can't afford a new car at all?
Ethiopia's move is getting global attention. Does this suggest that developing countries can leapfrog straight to clean tech, maybe even faster than wealthier places?
That's what's so interesting. It challenges the idea that only rich countries can lead on climate policy. Ethiopia's experiment is being watched by other nations facing urban pollution and energy transition challenges. Will their model become a template or a cautionary tale?
It raises a bigger question. Is this the start of a global South-led push for climate action, or is Ethiopia an outlier? Only time will tell.
So today we've seen how Ethiopia's EV ban is reshaping business, infrastructure, policy, and daily life, raising questions about who leads the clean energy transition.
Thanks for joining us as we explored how one country's bold experiment could shift global assumptions and maybe the entire market for electric vehicles.
Thank you for listening. This episode is powered by mynews.studio. Try now for free.